Our team got completely stripped down. So I had this like beautiful, beautiful event and was laid off about 2 weeks later, something. It happened really, really fast. We're the company that they go to for those kinds of events because they know that we're going to really genuinely care about what we do there. And our genuine care obviously does shine a nice mirror back to the companies. For those who don't have clients, who aren't starting I think a website is still pretty important, but also so is being really active.
Welcome to the Worthy for 30 podcast. I am your host, Eric Tash. Join us as we delve into the world of impactful business leaders who are setting the bar high. Worthy for 30 carefully curates its guests, engaging with business trailblazers who embody the ethos of doing good while doing well. In each episode, we extract actionable tips and wisdom from these visionaries, offering you a blueprint to merge success with social impact. Ready to elevate your business game? Let's dive in and learn how to do good while thriving. Worthy for 30, where purpose meets profit. Back to the Worthy for 30 podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tash. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Hallie Seltzer, the founder and CEO of Pinpoint Productions. With nearly 2 decades of experience in live events, Hallie's expertise spans from end-to-end event production to campaign strategy and creative direction. She's collaborated with renowned brands like Google, Netflix, and Dior, transforming ambitious concepts into unforgettable experiences. In 2015, Hallie recognized a need for authentic partnership and meaningful engagement in the event industry, leading her to establish Pinpoint Productions. Since then, the company has evolved into a trusted ally for impactful brands worldwide, blending creativity with genuine care and commitment to community values. Join us as we delve into Hallie's journey, insights, and the passion driving Pinpoint Productions to redefine the landscape of event production. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Worthy for 30 podcast. Just grateful to have you here, Hallie.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a wonderful introduction that was. Also got a little nauseous hearing nearly 20 years in the industry. Way to make me feel old, Eric.
It's the season, the veteran. You have so much to offer, so much to bring to the table. I think it just contextualizes, the conversation we're going to have today with a maven in the event industry. And before we started recording, I thought to myself, let's improvise a little bit. Hallie said she has a guest to introduce.
I would call her a VIP. This is
VIP.
A Pinpoint pet. We have many a dog on the Pinpoint team, actually, but she is my newest addition, my sidekick, my road dog, and her name is Georgia. Her origin story is actually pretty funny. I was doing an event in Piedmont Park in Atlanta, doing a big build. It was like a 2-day load-in, 1-day event, 1-day load-out, so it was long. And there she was, about the size of my hand, being carried around with a group of other puppies, like 9 puppies. And the rest is history, as they say.
Were you in the market? Were you looking for a dog, or it just everything just came together in that one moment?
I wish that I could say I had given it more thought. I travel so much for work, and I never really imagined that I would have the capacity to have a dog. I've always wanted a dog, and candidly, I've always wanted a big dog because my last dog actually was a chow. I don't know if you know that brand, but that breed, not brand.
Big?
They're big. They look like lions. They're protective dogs. And Georgia, for the listener, is a tiny Pomeranian. So you could not have a smaller dog, which, actually works when you're traveling the way I travel because she can fly. So she can fit right under his seat. She's already got more frequent flyer miles than some of my friends. If you hear her barking, apologies to anyone listening. It's a high-pitched puppy bark, but hopefully she'll be quiet and be as attentive.
That's amazing. In terms of dog companions, not being in the market or looking for a dog, I think it has perhaps a good segue into how you got into event production and to where you are today. I think we were talking about, your progression, your journey last week when we were getting ready for this recording, and you went to school in Washington, D.C. When you went to school, did you ever expect that this is where you would be fast forward, X number of years? So looking back, describe that. Let us in.
Let's get into the mind of 18-year-old me. which was basically, I want to be an actress. I want to be a musician. I want to be in politics. I wanted to be doing something that had to do with experiences.
Sure.
But if you were to tell me that I was going to be where I am today, I definitely would not think I'd be here. Looking back though, and actually seeing the things that I did, from a cappella groups that I was in, to organizing fundraisers, to working on campaigns in DC, because obviously that is a political town, so it was hard to avoid politics.
Sure.
It actually kind of all does fit together. It just took me a little bit of time to find it. I think I told you in our earlier call, my dad actually was in the industry also. He ran a company that did mostly, I'd call them like sales meetings and larger corporate events.
Mm-hmm.
And he always said from the time I was a kid that he thought that I would be great at it. And I avoided it like the plague. I was like, I will not do, maybe a little contrarian in me if I'm being honest, but I was like, I will not do what my dad thinks I'll be good at. But also more than that, it was like, nepotism, I'm allergic to it. And I wanted nothing to do with getting a leg up because of my dad. So I kind of rejected it for longer than I maybe should have. And then once I found it, through Dior, actually, you mentioned that was my first job in-house, where I did my very first event and fell completely in love. Talk about the rest is history. That's when it really kicked off and started. And college me never would have guessed.
Wow. That is amazing. And so Dior is your first client. You're in-house. What was the next step to go from in-house to, let me start found my own company?
Well, I mean, a couple of things were out of my control. So first, fashion and me, I would say, it's a tough industry and didn't necessarily fit with my value system.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about the gloss, all about just how do things look, which, by the way, is super important as an event producer. You always care about how things look, but I definitely wanted something that had a little bit more depth. For anyone who works in fashion, I do not mean to imply that there is no depth in fashion, but for me, it just didn't quite do it. And ultimately, I wound up working next for a company called Product Red. And they are the company that was founded by Bono to help fight the AIDS epidemic in Africa. That, I don't know if you know their branding. It's red in parentheses.
Yes. I had an iPhone with the red branding.
Me too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That was, I think, really what ultimately did it. I wound up helping launch the partnership between Starbucks and Red.
Oh, wow.
And did the huge event on World AIDS Day, which is December 1st in Times Square. We launched it on the Today Show. We had a huge activation. And unfortunately, the year was 2008, and then came layoffs. And our team got completely stripped down. So I had this like beautiful, beautiful event and was laid off about 2 weeks later. It happened really, really fast. The next thing that I started to do was freelance. I was realizing I really loved events. I really loved producing. I, at the time, was a coordinator and started working in and around companies all over New York. Through my working with those other agencies, I started to kind of realize that sometimes the way that I was approaching clients, approaching jobs, was a little different than the way that some of my colleagues were approaching it, and wondered if there was a way that I could actually kind of try to create. And really, I wanted to do it myself. I wasn't expecting to have a company. I just thought maybe I could go out on my own and find the jobs where the way that I tackle events was appreciated. And ultimately, we found a very fortunate first client that required that I have a company. That client was Google. Then Pinpoint began. And really, I'd say we started officially in 2016. So 2015 was the year of incorporation. 2016 was year one.
Gotcha. And for the folks who are freelancing now, who are in that middle, I worked for someone, I'm freelancing, I'm on the precipice, or maybe there's some ambivalence. What's your advice to them?
First of all, freelancing is so hard. So if you're doing it, I feel you. It is a hustle and a half. So in order to be a successful freelancer, the number one thing you need is hustle. But I would say anytime I'm interviewing someone new, I think the first thing that you have to do when you're trying to make the next step is to really lead with your values. If something doesn't feel right for you, if you can't go home and say, I'm proud of what I've done today, we spend too many hours working to be doing that. And if your values are deep then I think you have to follow. I would also say for those who are looking to branch out, networking, I know that's especially post-COVID, it's harder and harder to kind of get back out. But networking is so important. I would say 80% of my clients are people that I've met through events and have then become clients. You'd be shocked at how many people you can meet out. I would also say find your mentors and don't be shy about asking for help, because our industry is chock full of people who have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and most of us really want to help the next generation. So I would say also just ask for help. Ooh, and also I would say one last thing, find a good accountant.
So if you had to do it all over again, would that be, okay, the incorporation or setting up the corporate structure, then hiring the accountant? Like, where would that be on the priority list?
I think it would maybe be accountant first.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And here's the thing. Pinpoint is a really unique event production company. We do events in all 50 states, plus we do territories. We are currently planning events in Guam and Puerto Rico. We're doing one in the Virgin Islands. And that really, we started out our company as a grassroots event agency that could do events anywhere. But also, our industry is just complicated and people are working all over the country. So you really do. And the reason why I say find an accountant is I did it very wrong as a freelancer. It bit me in the butt, candidly, Eric.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's great advice.
Never again.
Never again. Okay. Excellent advice. You mentioned values twice. We're not even 12 minutes into the conversation. So we'd love to hear what are your core values or fundamental values that you want to incorporate with anything that you do professionally.
I think oftentimes event producers and event companies doesn't really make sense that you could be sustainable. It doesn't really make sense that you could be as careful with your end audience. And I think for me, the thing that I've always been guided by is really honesty, transparency, and genuine care. And that's really all the way around the circle. So that's both for clients. So that's making sure that my clients know exactly what we're doing, but also our budgets are really, really clear, which I can't say for some of my competitors. That also means being extraordinarily clear with my team. It means being honest with the communities that we're visiting to say, this is exactly what you can expect. A lot of event companies come in, they have a plan, they have a vision, they come in, they bulldoze, they reset. Whereas we like to really incorporate the community where we're going and make sure that everyone knows what we're doing, but also get their input. What will make a great event for you? And I think it's asking the questions both of our clients to make sure that there's a little bit of depth in the strategy behind an event campaign, and also making sure that everyone in the community where we're going has a seat at the table when we're making decisions. And I just don't think that that's typical in our industry. And I think that is really because my background is more strategy and production. And the rest of my team has similar values.
Similar values, right. And you're looking for those values, it sounds like. I don't want to assume, but you're looking for those values when you're hiring.
Definitely.
And in terms of that honesty, the transparency, that community integration piece, when we were talking, I think it was last week, there were 3 campaigns for Google that were going on simultaneously. I'd love for you to discuss it perhaps at a high level. First, I think it's a 2-part question. First, it's how is Pinpoint Productions different from other event production companies with respect to impacting the local communities where you're activating clients' events?
I think that the first thing that makes us a little bit different and why we consider ourselves to be grassroots versus event agencies that can do events anywhere is we have, over the almost 20 years I've been in this industry, we have a network of professionals in every single state where we're hiring locally everywhere we go. Everyone from our AV tech to all of the decor to actual teammates, photographers, videographers, all live in the states and communities where we are. And that is both because we think it's more sustainable that way, but also huge value for us is also bringing economic impact to the communities where we're going. Hiring locally also means that we're benefiting the places we go. So I think that that's a little different than other companies. I think also we're really not shy on pushing back against clients. And I think that agencies, and the trouble with event agencies is there are so many of us that I think many agencies feel that you have to be a yes woman. because you're worried about losing clients and the competition is really high. But for us, I think our value is really in pushing back sometimes and making sure our clients are thinking about every event in a more three-dimensional way. So it's not just like, what are we, okay, so we're putting on an event and we want to make sure that the message that we're sharing is we have this grant that we're launching. Okay, great. But how else can we actually bring that to life in an event where we're having more? I can actually use some of the events that we've just done as example. So we, as you mentioned, this past week, we just executed 3 different event campaigns for Google. The one that we just left, and I just got back this morning actually from Minnesota, we did a partnership launch between Highlights Magazine, Google.org, which is their foundation, and the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And so we came in, there was a grant announcement. There was maybe going to be a coding class with kids. And we thought, okay, but we have kids that are going to be coming after school. This is their thing that they do while they wait for their guardian to come home. How can we make this extra special? And how also can we tie in Highlights Magazine a little bit more? Because also they're a fabulous nonprofit. And so it's singing the praises of both the Boys and Girls Club and Highlights. And so we wound up bringing Highlights Magazine to life by creating huge hidden picture walls, by teaching about digital wellness. There were 5 different takeaways for each student and each kid as they came through. So it could have just been a press conference, and maybe a little tutoring. And we developed a full-scale program where the kids left and they were so excited. We heard back actually from the Boys and Girls Club. It was the kids just were talking so much about the hidden picture wall specifically, but they had a great day. And that really, when we're thinking about success in an event, really we think about equal tiered is our client is happy, but also our guests are happy. And when both happen and both are equally jazzed, then that to me is a job well done.
That is tremendous. And in terms of like those conversations, does Google come to you and to Pinpoint Productions and say, hey, we want to do this partnership or event or partnership with Highlights Magazine, really impacting the local students? How do those conversations come about?
Well, with Google specifically, and I will say we've been really, really lucky with that client, is they kind of see us as synonymous with social impact led events. So we're typically their first call for, okay, we're launching this grant. How can we bring the announcement of this grant to life? We've done this for grants with the USO. We've done this with Feeding America. Every single campaign is different and is suited to the grant announcement. So for Feeding America, it was at food banks, and every food bank had different needs, different wants, different, goals. We're the company that they go to for those kinds of events because they know that we're going to really genuinely care about what we do there. And our genuine care obviously does shine a nice mirror back to the companies we work for. Yeah.
Gotcha. So if I'm a founder or if I'm a CEO, CMO who's listening to this, is it just like, let me pick up the phone and call Hallie and the Pinpoint Productions team and schedule a meeting? Or again, to your point, it's referral based. But again, I'm just thinking about, some of the, the startups that I've spoken of, startup founders I've spoken to, the CMOs of large companies I've spoken to, like how should they be thinking about social impact? And should you be the first call to make, or should they first really formalize a strategy and then have that conversation with you in terms of taking that strategy and making it come to life?
Well, of course, I want to be everyone's first call. So CMOs and CEOs listening, call us. No, but I think if we're thinking about social impact in events specifically, because I don't want to pertain to know, I'll stay in my lane on that. But first, I always think that you need to know what you want to leave with. Like, what is it that you're hoping, if you have one message, because most people's attention spans are, social media has destroyed us. I think if we were to leave with one key takeaway, what is that key takeaway? I think you start almost at the end. So I would start at, okay, we want this message is delivered, and then we want our attendees to leave feeling this way. Those would be the 2 questions that I would say, start with that. What do you want to leave with? And what do you hope your guests will leave with? And then you work backwards. I think you start big, and then the last thing you do are the details. So I think event companies and production companies are great, but I think that those are also just good questions that should be asked for, the startups and nonprofits who can't afford an event company. And we have anyone who also just is listening. We also have so many of those kinds of templates with questions. So just email and I can also send them to you.
Excellent, excellent. And I'll include, where to follow you in the show notes, in the episode write up. If anyone has questions, anyone who's listening who has questions, in terms of the Boys and Girls Club, we were also talking about some of the pro bono work that you and Pinpoint Productions are doing. Can you speak to that in terms of like the thesis and how you're choosing which community organizations to work with on a pro bono basis?
We're in year 3 of actually having the capacity to take on pro bono work, which it's all I've ever really wanted for the company. I think that there are so many worthwhile nonprofits that just don't have the money to put on events. And for us, we've had the benefit of working with, again, some really large scale foundations who have connected us to organizations that we wouldn't otherwise have a connect to. So for example, we met the greater area Pittsburgh food bank through that gig, but we really connected with that food bank. They had a really specific need, and their need was they were unveiling this huge 20,000 square foot warehouse that had way more refrigeration. They were inviting the community. They were having the governor come speak, and they needed help. And so I raised my hand and I said, we'd love to help you. We'd love to be a part of this. And we donated all of our services. And actually, in the end, we ultimately donated everything. So they didn't pay a cent to Pinpoint, and we produced the gala. This year, again, we fell in love with the Boys and Girls Club of America. And hopefully we're still, and I mentioned this in our previous call, we're in talks with the Minnesota club that I just left to help them with a redesign of one of their spaces. So not so much an event, but because we're producers, we can produce anything. And we hope to be able to help them do that. Candidly, it's been a lot of circumstance where we met people while we were working and those became our clients. But now that we're starting, we're going to be way more deliberate in what we do. We actually just had a call this past week so that my team could actually say, who do you want to work for? Because the whole point is I want my team to feel empowered to say, okay, we really want to help this organization, and then they're in charge of reaching out and seeing what we can do. Yeah, pro bono work, I think, is, especially as we get bigger and especially as we can, staff up, is going to become more and more a part of what we do. I'm hoping it can be 20% of what we can do in the next 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. That is tremendous. It's funny, the way that you and I were connected through through your publicist. She was listening to the conversation that I had with Jessica at Raised by Us. And Raised by Us is a platform that's pairing, again, founders or startups with nonprofits and really helping mobilize employees on terms of like what causes are really important to you. So it's amazing to hear that, yes, you're working with incredible people, your clients and the communities that they're serving, but also the employees that you're bringing on and hiring to be the face of Pinpoint Productions, and really asking them, okay, what is important to you? What makes you tick? Because again, it goes back to those core values of honesty, transparency. It's that attention to detail, and it's being thorough. And it's also, it's really also surveying, what's important to your employees. So is that just like a fluid conversation, or are you surveying, your employees? Like, how are those sort of conversations coming about?
Well, we had an actual meeting that was specifically on this. So a couple of things. When we're hiring, I'd say a lot of people find Pinpoint because of the work that we do. So, people who work in events, who've been working in agency life for a long time, kind of come to us and are excited to do events that have social impact, even if it's for large companies. Typically, the people that are coming to us to work for us already share and align on the values that I mentioned, but we actually have specific strategy meetings on who do we want to approach. We all have to agree, obviously. So people pitch, and hopefully we all land somewhere that we all agree to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is amazing because it's funny. I also spoke with Emily from Grapevine, which is all about virtual giving circles. So you have people who have let's say it's a specific cause, and virtually those people pool their dollars, and they vote on, okay, what's a nonprofit to donate, whether it's on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. So I think it's really amazing that making it, let's say, an open environment in terms of, okay, what is important to you? And I think that's incredible that, employers like yourself are forward thinking in terms of, again, what is important, outside, because again, you're spending a lot of time at work. So, and yes, we're doing, and it sounds like you're doing incredible work within the local communities that you're helping your clients serve. It's a bonus, I think, for the employees to feel invested in terms of, yes, the work that they're doing, but also that, hey, what's important to me is being heard, and it's being acted upon, which is great. And it goes back to, I also imagine, a strain of mentorship. As again, I imagine you have a handful of mentors. Is that safe to assume?
Yes, I have two that immediately fly to mind, are two people that I call regularly. And now, obviously, I have taken on a few mentees. Weird to think of myself as a mentor, but I've been working with some people from the time that they were in college who have now kind of been working with me now for a decade almost.
Wow. Okay.
And then separately, mentorship is kind of a huge part of what we do in general. If we're at a school, for example, and we are setting up in an auditorium space, we always open up hours to kids who can come and like watch us set up and ask questions of our team. Because also I think that, production can come in any person. And I think we've actually had a lot of kids who've enjoyed coming to us while we're building and asking actually lots of like nerdy technical questions on how do these things work. But that's also, my team loves that. And I never had the opportunity to do that with other companies.
That is incredible. I think, the implication application is like, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
If there's something that comes to mind, just ask. And it's funny. I read about this, the former CMO, Angela Ahrendts of Burberry. Like when you're a new employee, like when you're asking questions out of curiosity to really understand. And I think if you have a passion, on wanting to, pursue this line of work and asking the people who've been there before or who are doing it, that curiosity, helps spark, perhaps other ideas and other ways of again, acquiring information, or, oh, I didn't know about, here's the answer to your question, but have you also considered X, Y, and Z? So again, it opens up that person's horizons, that much more, which is amazing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be formalized. Again, it's just raising your hand and asking for help.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think sometimes it's even better when it isn't formalized, when it is just bred out of a real curiosity. So good point.
Excellent. So, Hallie, this has been a great conversation. For the people who are interested in learning more about you, about Pinpoint Productions, where should they go?
Well, first, I'd say check out our website. We just rebranded. So this is funny, but my website was put up in a flash because I needed one to have a company. And it's been 9 years with the same website that my boyfriend's brother built. So now the actual website matches the client base that we have, and I'm so proud of it. The second is we post a lot on LinkedIn, and that's both kind of tips. We post about our events. We post about what's happening. We sometimes give commentary on some events that are happening in the broader world. You could follow me personally on LinkedIn, and we're on Instagram. So I'd say Pinpoint Productions, pinpoint-productions.com, and you can find us at Pinpoint Productions on LinkedIn.
Excellent. I'll include those websites, those social media links in the show notes and the write up. In terms of building a website, it's funny. You said hiring an accountant is one of the top priority. Again, if you had to do it all over again, would website also be up there, or is that like, we'll eventually get to it?
I really could not have gotten luckier with the clients that we have, where we just didn't need it. Now we're hoping to, the team is getting bigger. We want different and more diverse clients that are outside of politics and tech. Not that we're mad at those clients, but we definitely want to diversify. Now we're ready to do that. So the timing actually worked out okay for us. For those who don't have clients, who aren't starting a because again, we just got really lucky that we happened to start off with a client. But I think a website is still pretty important, but also so is being really active. People want to know what you think. So being active on LinkedIn and social media really does actually matter, unfortunately.
Yes, I know. Social media, to your point, it's really affected our attention span.
I hate to say it, but we're actually having a lot of fun with it.
It's funny. Like I always watch, I try to, the little time that I have to, figure out that balance between free and premium content. You just want to give them to a point where it's like, that's interesting. Can you tell me more? Well, if you want to know more, let's talk about, an actual formal client relationship, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Again, and you're being transparent. Again, it goes back to that transparency and the honesty. You're being upfront. Again, it's great. But what's also that is very important for the people who are listening is having a point of view. From what I'm hearing, website or no website, the distinguishing factor is having a POV.
I think a point of view is so important. And going back to your, the way that I like to think about, when do you start formalizing clients? Think of picking a brain is really different than making a proposal. So like, that's where I think the difference is. Like, pick my brain. When you ask for a proposal, that's when.
Pick my brain. I don't know. It's like, it's a very polarizing term.
And a thin line.
It's a thin line. Yes, it's a thin line. Going back to LinkedIn and going back to social media, there's a lot of articles and posts about picking my brain. Yes, trying to get free. Again, free is it sometimes could be a dirty word, but I think it's been rephrased as providing value, in my opinion.
And hopefully, obviously, if you give a little bit of advice the way I like to think of it is they'll remember, maybe they're not able to hire you now, but, they'll remember you as being there giving advice, and hopefully they'll come back to you when they can afford a production company. And that actually has worked out for us before. So hopefully for you too.
Yeah, it's planting the seeds. Last question. You said you wanted to expand past politics and tech. What are some of your, I don't know, lofty, like this is a category that we really want to break into?
We'd love to be working with more foundations across the board. So not the foundations we're working with right now really are the foundations of tech companies. And we have aspirations for foundations in other job sectors separately. We really want to get more into the entertainment space in terms of the industries that are exploding. And I think what our team would have a fun time doing is more entertainment clients and bringing the same kind of care and thought. And ideally, we'd be able to kind of use the same business model on those clients and start to occupy some of the grassroots niche of those companies too.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Is there?
I'm like, if you want me to name names.
Yeah, I was going to say, name a name. Someone out there might know someone there at that company.
The Obama Foundation or Higher Ground. That is a tip top of our list. But separately, Netflix, we'd like to continue our work with them in a deeper way. We've done a few events and we'd love to deepen that relationship.
Excellent. There you have it. Hallie, it's been a great, more than half hour talking about all things Pinpoint Productions, event production strategy, and most importantly, impacting local communities. I'm just going to reiterate, tremendous conversation. Really do appreciate your time. For the people who are going to be listening, all the links to follow Hallie and also Pinpoint Productions will be in the show notes, will be in the write-up. And again, I very much appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Excellent. Thank you for joining this episode of the Worthy for 30 podcast. Stay tuned for more insights from impactful business leaders. Don't miss out. Follow us on all podcast platforms to catch every conversation.